President, I rise today to speak about our relations with our neighbors to the south in Latin America. I recently had the opportunity to travel to Latin America and visit the countries of Honduras, Panama, and Colombia. These meetings were very productive, and during these meetings I had the chance to meet with the new president of Honduras, President Lobo, as well as our great ally and friend, President Uribe of the country of Colombia. Our partnership and friendship with Latin America goes back many decades. And in recent times, we have used wonderful programs like USAID and Millennium Challenge funds to help build the infrastructure of Latin America, as well as provide the tools to create jobs that would be sustainable in those countries. Our goal in Latin America is simply this: we want them to succeed. We want strong neighbors with good democracies, with a respect for the rule of law, a place where their people can be free and prosper, and hopefully establish great trading partnerships with us in the United States of America. But the history of Latin America, even recently, while there have been many successes, there have also been setbacks. We have recently had troubles in Honduras with President Zelaya, the former president, who tried to stay in office, and then we had an ouster of him. There was a debate among us as to whether or not that was a coup or whether it was legally done. But nonetheless, it was a disruption in that country's emerging democracy. In meeting with President Lobo, I was impressed that he has put together a national unity government in endeavoring to create those democratic institutions and strengthen the ones that Honduras was building upon, and establish a rule of law that will give countries like America and business people from our country the opportunity to transact business in that country. I believe that under President Lobo's leadership, that we've got a good chance for Honduras to reemerge on the stage in Latin America as a good and healthy democracy. And I was pleased that Secretary Clinton just recently recognized the democratically elected president. I encourage President Obama to receive President Lobo. We need friends, Mr. President, in the region. We need friends for a number of reasons. We need friends in Latin America, specifically Central America, because of the devastating and harmful drug trade. The drug trade in Latin America that funnels drugs and guns to this country is not just a challenge in and of itself because of the deadly narcotics it brings to America. It is a challenge because of the violence and the organized structure of violence that goes with it. Mr. President, recently we saw that drug gangs in Mexico extracted the worst form of vengeance upon a family of a young military officer. A military officer died in Mexico, killing the head of a drug cartel. He was celebrated by that country in what would be akin to a state funeral. And the drug cartel, to exact vengeance and to send a signal, killed all the members of that soldier's family. That is terrorism. And the money that's provided by these drugs that run from northern South America, the Colombia region, and then through Central America, those connections, that violent chain, is very dangerous to this country. And it's dangerous for many reasons, but there is an increasing danger. There's an increasing danger that has occurred with the entrance of Iran and its progeny into Latin America. Mr. President, we now know that Ahmadinejad is trying to show his sphere of influence in Latin America, that Hezbollah and Hamas, surrogate groups for Iran, who have done most of their damage in Lebanon and in Gaza, are now setting up shop in Latin America. And one of the reasons I'm here to speak on the floor today is that I am concerned that the same networks that have transported violence and drugs and guns to this country could be used by Hezbollah and Hamas to provide a national security threat to us in this country and potentially bring terrorism to us in that way. So our friendship with these countries like Honduras, our friendship with countries like Panama, our friendship with countries like Colombia matters. It not only matters because we care about the human rights of the people in those countries and we want them to be prosperous and free, but it matters because of our own national security. Good, stable, democratic partners are good for the United States of America. So we should continue to acknowledge President Lobo. We should restore the visas that were suspended during the Zelaya incident. And we should do everything we can to encourage trade, to continue with Millennium Challenge funds, continue with USAID, so that that country can be prosperous and free and secure. And the same goes true for Panama. Panama is a wonderful friend and partner to the United States. The Panama Canal, which the United States had for many years, but now is in the hands of Panama, is a tremendous trading conduit to our country. And the Panama Canal is expanding. Right now, dredging and other works are being put in place to allow larger ships to come through the Panama Canal. Why is that important for the United States of America? Well, no longer will these super container ships from China have to go just to California to let off their goods. No longer will they have to go around the bottom of South America. Now they can come through the Panama Canal and service the eastern seaboard of the United States. And Mr. President, for a state like mine in Florida, this is very important. So we have to do the work in this country to make sure that we're ready for those what they call post-Panamax ships, that our ports are dredged deep enough, that we have the security and the infrastructure in place to make sure that we can receive those large ships. And I've been an advocate for making sure that Miami and Jacksonville and Tampa and other ports are ready to receive those ships, because that trade will create thousands of jobs, not just in my home state, but all across this country. And it brings me to the point of trade. We have pending trade agreements, Mr. President, that have not yet been sent over by the White House to be ratified by this Congress. Trade agreements with Panama that need to be ratified. Trade agreements with Colombia that need to be ratified, and also with South Korea. It makes no sense not to ratify those agreements. And let me turn my attention, if I can, to Colombia. We have no better friend in Latin America than President Uribe. President Uribe will go down in history as one of the greatest leaders in this hemisphere. He, in my mind, is akin to Abraham Lincoln for their country. Because when he came into office about 8 years ago, we were on the verge of Colombia turning into a narco-terrorist state in which the drug gangs would have taken over the country. In fact, before President Uribe came to office, the previous president set aside a part of the country in order to allow the FARC to occupy, the rebels to occupy this one geographical space and set up shop. It was a disaster. And I'm told that when President Uribe was sworn into office just a short, almost 8 years ago, that the FARC was shelling and bombing Bogota to try to kill him on his inauguration. It is hard for us to realize what a civil war would be like, but that's really been the situation in Colombia. And because of the efforts of the United States of America, and because of our military and trade support and the Plan Colombia, which we put $1 billion into, Mr. President, Colombia has turned the tide. The good guys are winning, and the FARC, the narco-terrorists, are losing. And we are doing a very good job of beating those folks back, and President Uribe must be commended. But of all of our friends in the hemisphere, we have not ratified the free trade agreement with Colombia. We've done it with Peru. We've done the Central America Free Trade Association, the CAFTA agreements, but not Colombia. This agreement is 4 years old. I've spoken to our United States trade representative and urged him to urge this administration to send these trade agreements here. Now, I know the problem is not the Senate. The problem is down the hall with our colleagues in the House. And I know they're concerned about certain issues in Colombia. And I want to point out for my friends in the House of Representatives, because they are concerned about organized labor, in Colombia that under the leadership of this government in Colombia, that homicides of union members are down nearly 80% since 2002. Homicides in general are down 45% in 2008, the lowest point in 22 years. Kidnappings are down by more than 80%, and acts of terrorism are down 63%. I had a chance, Mr. President, to go to Bogota. It is a beautiful and wonderful city. It rises nearly 8,000 feet above sea level, which is 3,000 more feet than Denver. Yet it is green and verdant, and it is one of the world's most unbelievable places to grow flowers. And 75% or more of the flowers that come in this country that you get at your florist come to us through Colombia. And when they come from Colombia, guess where they go through to get to the United States of America? They all come through Miami, which makes me proud as a senator from Florida. That trade that we have right now, the Colombians benefit from free trade, but we don't benefit in return. We must ratify this agreement. We must acknowledge our friends in Colombia. By not ratifying the agreement, the signal we're sending is that perhaps our relationship with them under this administration is not as good as it's been with previous administrations. We don't want to send that wrong signal to a model country for Latin America. But let me again talk about this concern I have about the emerging threat of Iran and its influence in Latin America. And there is a deadly combination forming between Ahmadinejad of Iran and Hugo Chavez of Venezuela. And just this week, Mr. President, and I'd like to ask unanimous consent that this newspaper article, which I'm about to read from, be entered into the record.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. This article from March 2nd, 2010, and I believe it's a Wall Street Journal article, talks about the revelation that has just occurred that Hugo Chavez and his government were involved with the Basque separatist group in Spain in an effort to assassinate the president of Colombia, President Uribe. This article from March 2nd, 2010 says that Spanish National Court Judge Eloy Velasco alleged Monday that Venezuelan government had collaborated with Basque separatist group ETA and Colombia's main guerrilla group, which is the FARC, in a plot against leaders living in or traveling to Spain that began in late 2003. The allegations were part of an indictment that ordered 12 alleged members of ETA and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, to stand trial on charges of conspiracy to commit murder and terrorism. There was an effort to assassinate the president of Colombia, and it was done, according to this judge, in combination with the president of Venezuela. Hugo Chavez is just as bad as Raul Castro. He is trying to spread the same tyranny to the country of Venezuela, a country that was formerly free. He is shutting down the media. He is arresting college students. He is destroying the economy to the point where there are now brownouts because they can't provide enough electricity. A country which has tremendous oil reserves and energy reserves, but he is not using those to bring money into the country. He is shutting the economy down. He is bringing despair to his people. The Cuban government is now involved in the operation of Venezuela. They're calling it Venecuba. This is a danger to us. And who is received by Hugo Chavez in Venezuela? Ahmadinejad from Iran. And what do we believe and what are we concerned about? That Hezbollah and Hamas are now setting up shop in Venezuela in the region as well. Another article, Mr. President, that I ask unanimous consent be entered into the record.
Without objection.
This is a February 19th, 2010 article from the Associated Press by Kurt Anderson. 3 men charged in Miami with financing Hezbollah. 3 men charged in an indictment unsealed Friday with illegally exporting electronics and video games to South American shopping center that U.S. officials claim funneled money to a Hezbollah militant group. John Morton, Assistant Homeland Security Secretary for ICE, said that the arrest will disrupt a network involved in the illicit trade of commodities that support terrorist activities and ultimately threaten the national security of the United States. Mr. President, in his book, The Gathering Storm, Winston Churchill described all of the failed attempts and all of the missed opportunities of Europe in the years building up in the 1930s to World War II. The failures of courage, the missed opportunities to stop Nazi Germany in its rise. And Winston Churchill described it as a gathering storm because there were signs all along the way of the fascism and the war machine that Adolf Hitler was building. And what did the Allies do when Germany reestablished its presence in the land between France and Germany, in that Rhine land region, and sent their troops back in? They did nothing. And what did the Allies do when the Germans went into Czechoslovakia? They did nothing. So there were these steps along the way, and it was a gathering storm that was ignored until it was too late. And the point that I'm trying to convey here is that we have an existential threat with Iran. Ahmadinejad is an existential threat to this country. We know that he is trying to build the ability to have nuclear weapons. We know that he's talking with Hugo Chavez about mining uranium, or at least that's our concern. And these sanctions and the discussions that we're having are not working. Now, I give credit to Secretary of State Clinton on recently coming out and saying we don't even know that Ahmadinejad is in charge of Iran. It may just be the Revolutionary Guard, the military, that's running Iran. But the time for talk is over. We have to work on the world community to impose sanctions against Iran. We need to stop trading as a world community with Iran. We need to stop buying oil from them. We need to shut them down until the people of Iran can take their country back over, bring back human rights, bring back democracy, the right to petition your government, the right to elect your leaders, the right to free speech. Iran has a great democratic tradition, or at least a tradition of having rights. They had a king. But Iran was a progressive society before 1979. And we see the young people in the streets who've been beaten down, just trying to express their views, trying to say that the election of Ahmadinejad was not legitimate. But I explain these things today, Mr. President, because I believe Iran is trying to set up shop in Latin America. And we need strong, bolstered friends in the region to defend against this. We do not need Hezbollah and Hamas posing a national security threat right here in our own hemisphere. There is a gathering storm. And the steps we take today, if we are strong and bold and vigilant, can stop the storm from breaking upon us. Mr. President, I yield the floor.